Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the life of Bill Gates. But this isn't just going to be a straight-up biography. No, we're looking at his life as something more, like a blueprint for how power and influence really work in our world today.
All right, let's just dive right into the heart of it, shall we? When you talk about Bill Gates, you're really talking about this kind of split personality. Is he the ruthless tech mogul who basically built an empire by steamrolling anyone in his way? Or is he the global savior? The guy who's dedicated his life to saving millions. I mean, can a person really be both of those things at the same time?
And that's why his story is so much more than just one guy's incredible success. It's really a set of architectural plans. It shows us, step by step, how these massive tech fortunes get turned into actual global power. The kind of power that shapes policy and public health in ways that, frankly, most governments can only dream of.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. And the classic tech story, it always starts in a garage, right? Well, not this one. This story really kicks off in a super competitive Seattle family, and then at this private school, Lakeside Prep. And it's there that something kind of incredible happens. The Mother's Club makes an investment in a single computer terminal. And that one decision, it pretty much changes the course of history.
And you can see the whole trajectory laid out right here. I mean, think about it. He goes from writing a simple tic-tac-toe game in '68 to co-founding a business that's actually making money, Trafo Data, just a few years later. So by the time he lays eyes on that Altair 8800 computer, it's game on. The path was already set. He drops out of Harvard. Well, technically he took a leave of absence, which is a pretty smart safety net, but he never needed it. He was all in on the microcomputer revolution.
Okay, now this is the move that changed everything. It's a total masterstroke. And what's wild is that Microsoft didn't even have an operating system to sell to IBM in the first place. As you can see, they just bought one called QDOS on the cheap, slapped a new name on it, MS-DOS, and then they made the single most brilliant business decision of the century. They licensed it to IBM, but not exclusively. What did that mean? Well, it meant that every single company trying to build an IBM clone also had to come to them for the software. Microsoft basically built a toll booth right in the middle of the PC revolution and collected a tax on almost every computer sold.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just some mission statement on a poster. It was an all-consuming vision, and it fueled this famously, intense work culture at Microsoft. I mean, the stories are legendary. Gates had this super aggressive questioning style, and he'd apparently even check the employee parking lot on weekends just to see who was grinding it out.
So, when you have that level of absolute dominance, well, it's only a matter of time before you attract some unwanted attention, right? And by the late 90s, Microsoft's take-no-prisoners tactics put them on a direct collision course with the US government itself. This was going to be a showdown for the ages.
So what was the government's big argument? It all came down to this one idea: predatory bundling. The accusation was simple. Microsoft was using its total monopoly on operating systems, Windows, as a weapon. They were tying Internet Explorer into it to completely crush their main competitor, Netscape. Basically, they were rigging the game in the brand new and hugely important web browser market.
You know that combative, argumentative style that Gates was famous for? The one that worked so well for him inside Microsoft? Well, in a court of law, it was an absolute train wreck. His videotape deposition is just legendary for all the wrong reasons. He came off as evasive, combative. He was literally arguing with lawyers over the definition of words like compete. It totally torpedoed his public image and did massive damage to his legal case.
So, the first ruling from the judge was an earthquake. The order was to literally break Microsoft in two. Now, they managed to appeal that and avoid the breakup, but the final settlement? You could argue it was just as important. It forced Microsoft to open up its code, to share its APIs with rivals. And that decision? Wow. It was like throwing open the windows in a stuffy, sealed room. All of a sudden, there was oxygen. And that oxygen is what allowed a whole new generation of companies, including Google, to breathe and grow.
That whole bruising public fight with the government, it was clearly a wake-up call. It acted as a catalyst for a huge, profound pivot in his life. He started stepping back from the day-to-day at Microsoft and began to appoint that immense fortune and that same relentless ambition at a whole new set of problems: global inequity.
And look, if you want to get a sense of just how big this new chapter is, just look at that number on the screen. 13 million. That's the estimated number of deaths prevented because of immunization programs that the Gates Foundation has backed. Let that sink in. Their work has helped cut child mortality in half since the year 2000. The scale is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
But of course, it's never that simple, is it? This is where the story gets way more complicated. Take a look at this chart of their spending. A massive chunk of it, 40%, goes into pharmaceutical research. Now, critics will jump on this and say, wait a minute, the foundation also invests in a lot of those same drug companies. So for them, it creates this huge conflict of interest. They see it as a continuation of that old Microsoft DNA, that same monopolistic strategy, right? Creating a top-down proprietary system. Only this time, it's not a computer operating system, it's a very specific approach to global health that relies heavily on patents and big pharma.
And then, in just the last few years, that very carefully built public image of Bill Gates as this global elder statesman, well, it started to fracture. A lot of personal revelations and some really intense public scrutiny have started to change the narrative.
The big catalyst was his divorce from Melinda French Gates back in 2021. That really opened the floodgates. Suddenly you had new reporting about all sorts of things. Melinda herself talked about being uncomfortable with his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And then other stories started coming out about questionable conduct in the workplace. All of a sudden, this public image that had been so tightly managed for decades, it just started to crack.
And so now we see another pivot. He's turning his focus to climate change, and he's doing it with a strategy that is, well, both incredibly pragmatic and deeply controversial. And this one quote, it just sums up his whole approach, this stark trade-off he's willing to make. He'll let the temperature go up just a tiny bit if it means we can get rid of a disease like malaria.
So this chart really breaks down that controversial new hierarchy for you. At the very top, for Gates, is human welfare, tackling poverty and disease that are happening right now. Number 2 on his list is adaptation, helping poorer countries build resilient infrastructure to deal with the climate change that's already here. And then, way down at the bottom is innovation, finding new tech solutions. It's a super pragmatic approach for sure, but for a lot of climate activists, it's a deeply, deeply troubling reprioritization of the problem.
Which brings us back to where we started, to the ultimate question. How do we define the legacy of Bill Gates? Is it all about the millions of lives he saved and the technological world he helped create? Or is it a cautionary tale about the dangers of concentrating so much power in the hands of one unelected billionaire who gets to remake the world in his own image? There's no doubt he's one of the chief architects of our modern world. The real debate is, for whom exactly did he build it?